Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining, those who are here already. Today, for this drone show safety roundtable, we are thrilled to have such an esteemed group of experts here with us to dive into such a important conversation, which is about safety and drone shows. It's time to get started. Little by little, we'll have more people joining us, I do believe. But as we wait for everyone to jump on, let's get started slowly. Safety at the end of the day is one of our top priorities as we continue to innovate, push boundaries of drone entertainment. And today we'll discuss that evolving landscape of safety regulation, the role of technology in preventing incidents, and how industry collaboration can ensure that safer shows are worldwide available for audiences. Our goal today is to provide a platform for sharing real-world insights into what safety challenges are nowadays, best practices, and how technology shapes the future of drone shows. Just by the way, before we get started and I introduce our amazing line of speakers, let me say that the webinar is being recorded, and after the session next week, you will receive an email with a link to the recording and the slides that we will be sharing today with you. This will allow you to revisit any key moment or information that you find most relevant for your case. By the way, also at the end of the webinar, we will have a Q&A session. Please feel free to submit your questions in the Q&A section on your screen, and we will address them after the speaking presentations. So with no more, with further ado, I would like to introduce the impressive lineup of speakers that will bring diverse perspectives from across the globe. And let me introduce each of them. My name is Ruben Martinez. I'm the head of drone show technologies at SPH. And today with us, we'll have Jens Hillenkotter, CEO of Nocturne Drone Shows. Hi there. Are you there with us?
Yeah, hi. Hello, my microphone was muted. Hi there.
Probably I could do the introduction about your introduction, guys, but I think it's always better if you have the chance to introduce yourself to the audience, guys.
Yeah, I'm Jens Hillenkotter. I'm the founder and CEO of Nocturne Drones. Nocturne Drones is basically split in 3 divisions. We have the Nocturne Drone Shows division. We have a division called Security and Defense, where we actually working in the civil and military area and gain countermeasures against unauthorized drones up till the defense. And we have a section called Special Projects, where we do special constructions for civil and military purposes. I will tell you a little bit more about me later when I am holding my little speech. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jens. Thank you very much. With us also we have today Arthur Scalis, leading engineer and trainer at SPH. Arthur, hi.
Hey, nice to meet everyone. I'm the lead engineer for drone show technologies, working with safety-related topics, also regulations in our company. So I have a long experience in regards of not only safety, but also training people. And I will be explaining more about my perspective on this topic today.
Great, thank you, Arthur. Paul Rossi, pilot and podcast host, coming and representing today also 910 Drones. Paul, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, Ruben. Thank you, everybody, for your time and attention in joining this. I'm located on the East Coast of the United States with 910 Drones, training, UAS program development, advanced operations, just helping people either start things from the ground up or integrate the latest technologies into their existing workflows, and then also representing dronelife.com. So the podcast weekly wings, always just trying to put out a lot of information talking about drone light shows often, just because the entertaining side, the technical side, the safety side, it brings everything kind of together. So grateful to be here. Thanks, Ruben.
Yeah. Actually, Paul, it's great what you just put on the table. There's a lot of topics, and hopefully today we'll cover most of them. And with us, we also have Ray Kaufman, system integration engineer and educator at Luminaire. Ray, thanks for joining us today also.
Hi, thank you for having us, and thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm a systems integration engineer with Luminaire. I have a deep background with technical education in drone education, and I'm the new head of light show drone development with Luminaire. So this is great. Thank you for having this.
Great, thank you, Ray. So after introducing each of our speakers today, let's move forward with what we have today on the table. So there are a lot of topics that we'll be talking about today, how we will structure the whole conversation. So we'll have each of our speakers talking about specific topics, going from European safety and regulation elements, global regulations, FAA perspective, role of technologies from a manufacturer perspective. And at the end of the day, at the end of the event, what we will do is talk a bit more about industry collaboration and the future, and closing with some remarks. And as I said at the beginning, the Q&A session. Yeah. Having said that, I introduced the guys today. And the first topic that we will discuss is European safety and regulation topics. This is a theme or a subject where Jens has a vast experience. And as I said before, Jens, it's a pleasure to have you with us today. As a leader in European drone show safety, we look forward to hearing your thoughts on the key risk, compliance challenges, especially facing providers in Europe. The floor is yours.
All right. Yeah, I share my screen with you. Again, thanks for having me. And I'm very glad that now the situation develops and that actually more and more people taking care of drone safety. As you know, there are more and more things happening at the moment, which harms the safety aspect in general and our reputation as a new drone show industry in general. As I quickly introduced, so I won't bore you with too much details about Nocturne Drone Shows and its certain divisions. I'm pretty sure most of you doing quite similar things or the same things with us. So let me go quick into my portfolio so you understand where I'm coming from, what my background is. So as I stated, I'm founder and CEO of Nocturne Drones based in Germany. And with this, I'm a multi-awarded designer and producer for drone shows. So I produced over 400 drone shows in the last 4 years or 5 years. So I'm more importantly, I'm the vice chairman of the Dean Standards Committee Aerospace. I'm an aerial systems operation personnel. So that means I'm co-heading the regulation system in Germany. And I'm also a member of the General Advisory Board of the Unmanned Aerial System. So that means there is drone shows included, but there's also like drone detection up to Hyperloop included. So there are a lot of topics being handled in this committee. I'm also a committee member of the CN and CENILEC, so the European Norming and Standard Committee, and also expert for the ISO, the International Standard Committee. Besides my activities, I also advisor for authorities, institutions, and insurance companies. So authorities like police forces, some of the regional authorities which are there to grant permissions for drone shows, because in Germany it's quite different to other countries. So like if you're doing a drone show in Italy, you always have to deal with one authority, the INAC. In Germany, they have a territorial perspective of this whole thing. So that means every county in Germany has their own department or own authority. And I'm also chairman of the Drone Show Alliance, which I will tell you a little bit more during the speak. So the first thing is we have to lead to the status quo. So where we are at the moment with drone shows in specific, and currently in the European Union, drone shows are applied and approved for in a specific category, but there are no specific regulations for swarm drones, or how we call it in the standard committees. It's a multi-drone operations. So everything we are doing at the moment is basically based on the rules for one-to-one operations and not to one-to-many operations, what we normally do. So one-to-one means one drone has one controller or one operator, but with us, it's completely a different concept. We're having drone shows, so one operator takes control of a lot of drones, up to thousands of drones. So as the incidents involving, and there's more and more happening in Germany, throughout Europe, and basically every day we get new messages or new news that drone shows failed badly. I mean, in the best case, they just didn't launch and kept on the ground. But there were a lot more shows where actually serious stuff happened. I think the most famous, if you want to call it that way, are in Asia, where basically thousands of drones coming down to the ground and actually hitting, like in US, there was like a drone show last year, I think, when I remember right, where like someone was really hit by a drone and had to go to a hospital. And these things are more and more increasingly common. So standardization bodies are being urged to define initial standards so that there is a base where we actually can start having solid regulations for one-to-many controlled drones. So the first thing we did at the standard committee is we looked at the reasons why did things fail, and we took a lot of incident reports, had a deep look into it. I mean, all the incidents reports were like of legal drone shows, so I'm not including like drone shows with no permission and everything, because it's a tremendous number. We know that, but we can't get into details. So only really reported incidents where there was actual permission from some kind of authority. So what it turned out normally to be is that the drone show provider or the crew involved had no in-depth knowledge of drone technology. And that actually starts with the absolutely basics. So can you explain the physical, how is the drone physically working? And when we talked to those people, they couldn't explain even the basics. They know that there are 4 propellers rotating and drone lifts up, lifts down, but they couldn't explain any of the physical parameters, which was a big concern for us. And the other thing is we had even untrained pilots, like really untrained pilots, or people trained by unqualified people or organizations. That means some people presented us a certificate and saying, oh yeah, I made a course for flying drone shows, and like digging more into this whole certification thing, because at the moment there is no certification for those things. It turned out someone with a little bit of drone experience, or even like some companies who coming from a complete different field, like we had one company which main purpose was actually to rent out video projectors, suddenly come to idea, oh yeah, we can rent out drones too. And in order to do so, we train people how to fly drone shows. So basically these people had no idea or no background of drones before, and actually gave out training certificates. Then the other thing is unexperienced or untrained crew, because with one-to-many operations, it's not only about the pilot, it's about all the crews and everything which comes around, like battery management, how to safely control drones, logistics, everything comes into place. Another point was human carelessness, where people said, okay, or found out during the show, we have a problem. And like in nearly every software we've seen so far, there's some kind of emergency procedure inbuilt. But they just didn't use it. I mean, they saw they lost control of the drone fleet and could just hit one button, but they said, oh yeah, we rather let the drone show fly and see what's happening. So we are not standing there without a drone show, which is a complete utter approach. One of the main things is the use of non-professional hardware. And I'm not talking about a specific manufacturer, so manufacturer A is better than manufacturer B. The worst thing we found on one of those shows was like a drone system bought by Temu or something similar online with an app control. So there was nothing even compared to what infrastructure we are normally using for drone shows. It was just a box, a few drones, and an app. So there was no control over airspace, height of the drones, or anything. This was very, very concerning that things like this even exist. Other things was like not properly serviced rental gear. So people got like gear from another company and this wasn't properly serviced and nobody checked it before. No trained procedures in case of errors is a big thing. So we had like 2 incidents in Germany. Like one was one of the last year's shows. There were 200 drones coming down from 300 Longsheng. So this is 2/3 of the drones. And when we looked at the press and all the articles and saw what their emergency procedure was, it was like far from anything you could imagine. Also, like a big thing is changing conditions in mission critical environment. So that leads from wind to rain, which is a normal thing we could or need to take into account when we are planning drone shows. But also like when we're doing jobs at festivals, an example. We are doing our pre-site visit, we are measuring signals and everything is fine, but nobody took care after this. And once a festival is fully ongoing, everybody uses Wi-Fi, like TV stations coming up and everybody is sending Wi-Fi forth back and nobody actually checks what is the actual status today. Is that still what we measured like weeks before when we started in the whole planning process? And the last thing, probably everybody has seen this as a collision with uncooperative drones. So means a drone which doesn't belong to the production and is not authorized crashed into a drone show. That happens more and more as the drone incidents in general are raising. So that leads to the thought, what specific regulations must be put in place for safe drone shows or multi-drone operations? And one of the first big goals we had is don't overrule this. Don't make it too complex, too complicated. Just look at the most important topics. And one of the first topics, and this is why this committee I'm heading is also called personal and operational. Pilot and crew training is a very, very crucial part where we are working on with all the authorities and all the standard organizations around Europe at the moment to actually define what knowledge must a drone operator or drone pilot need, and also the crew, what they need for specific kills. An example like battery management is one of the big skills we are looking into, because other than to one-on-one commands, we are not handling 1 or 4 batteries. I mean, on big shows with 1,000 drones, we sometimes have like 3,000 lithium polymer batteries carrying, which takes an own risk, which needs to take into account, and there needs specific people to be trained in how to deal with those dangers. We need specific standards for hardware, because at the moment in a specific category, there is no specific CE confirmation or anything asked for by the manufacturer. And one thing I have to say is all these things are applied to the European Union only. I know other countries like US handle it differently and have a sometimes better approach to all this. But this is what we're actually developing, standard CE for drones which working in a swarm. Then a regular inspection or audits with the drone show providers is another thing we are looking in with, especially with the authorities. So we are actually looking into the requirements of the civil aviation and wanted to break this down to be suitable for multi-drone operators and companies. Approval procedures with the specific characteristic for multi-drone application, so that we have like maybe even an own category in Europe for swarm drones, which specifically take this one-to-many control into account. And also, depending on the nature of the event, additional technical security measures. So like on every public event, we as Nocturne drones use drone detection by default. And we heard a lot of reports, drones being suspected to be jammed from outside, and especially at big public events with this big safety of issue of drones in general. This is something we're looking into, how we can implement this in the next standards. There will be specific software safety standards from the side of the software manufacturers, because at the moment everybody has something, but there are a lot of especially proprietary solutions which are actually don't have enough. And they are so hard to actually use. It's not intuitive, and this is not what someone can do in the event of incident, in the event of own stress. Yeah, and the last thing I already mentioned. So from the standpoint of now, where we don't have the regulation, a lot of authorities, customers from all over Europe, and also like agencies, big event agencies, reached out to us and said, how can we make sure that we are actually signing with the right drone show provider? Because as the market is today, we can't fly all the drone shows in Europe, even if we got asked to. So, and the market is, the requests are massive, and there are more, even if there are more drone show providers, the requests for drone shows will always be higher than the number of providers. But at the moment, what drone agencies are doing is they're Googling, they're reaching out, and everybody tries to prove themselves on the website. They are the best drone show providers in the world. So it's very rare that I see a drone show provider in Germany doesn't declare themselves, we are one of the leading drone shows providers in Europe, as a first sentence. It's very rare. And the agencies and authorities are actually right, how we can decide what's right, what's wrong. Specifically, and that's what I know from my work for insurance companies, the big problem for them is if they sign with a not qualified, not experienced drone show provider, they are also in danger of being put under charge in the event of an incident, because the insurance will not pay. We had this happening in Germany like 3 or 4 times, where an agency actually got elected to pay for all the damages, and especially when damages not against things, against people come into place, that can be very, very expensive. So what we founded over the last couple of weeks and months is the Drone Show Alliance. The Drone Show Alliance is the initiative of leading drone show providers in Europe, independent of manufacturers and platform, and it's dedicated to developing and adhering to common standards. So that means we are building like a platform where everybody who's here is happy to join or get in touch with us. We are supported. Thank you very much to Drone Show Software for supporting us from the start, and also like we are now getting more and more supporters on board, like Synchronorm, manufacturer or software developer for visualization software. And a lot of the leading companies are already joined us. So this is not about like making competition. It's about like having common safety standards where we know that is the top notch of safety standards and the highest quality levels we can gain at the moment. And the other thing is actually to help each other out, because we get so many requests all over Europe to do drone shows, and we can't do it all. So why not partnering up and helping each other out? And also, since we know, like with big events, and when in example, drone detection is required, I know drone detection systems cost a lot of money. They are sometimes like in the 7-digit numbers. So this is also where we can help out within this Drone Show Alliance to actually make sure all the shows flying by members of the Drone Show Alliance are being safe. So yeah, feel free to reach out. Thank you very much for your attention. And if you want to get in touch about Drone Show Alliance or other questions, feel free to contact me.
Thank you very much, Jens. I think there were a couple of items that I would like also to put forward to the rest of the table. And one of them is standardization. Do you guys think that as the industry has been gaining momentum across the world, that those standardization elements of the industry come natural Is it the right moment as the industry evolves? How do you see this, guys? Because in the case of Europe, we talk about very diverse markets, countries, etc. I do believe potentially, and this is something that we will touch upon with Paul in the next presentation in the US, etc. But yeah, how do you feel that process of standardization in an industry that has been evolving very fast over the last few years?
Oh, is that a question for me? or in general?
For everyone on the table,
Yeah.
since you brought that topic,
Yeah.
Jens, on the presentation, and then I believe that
Yeah.
will help us also to link it to Paul's presentation after that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think standardization is the key element. So first, to have everyone gaining the same quality, because what we found out in the competition we have here in Germany, the price points when we started like 5 years ago, or I think we did the first drone show about 8-9 years ago. Drone shows had a good, very high price point. I mean, the technology was new and nothing came off the shelf. So now we're having products on the market, out of the box solutions sometimes, or you have software solutions like yourself and hardware solutions which can work great together. The reason why some providers can offer very, very cheap drone shows is because they actually don't invest in safety. They taking equipment and everything as cheap as it gets. They're ignoring every even normal safety measures you would take into place. And since there are no regulations, they actually get a permit to do so from the aviation authorities. And the aviation authorities, on the other hand, when they talking to us, they say, yeah, we have one problem. We can't say you need to hold these and these safety measures when there is no standard. So the most comfortable way for your authority is to say, okay, yeah, we grant you a permission for the show when you keep to these safety regulations, which may be a DIN, may be a CEN norm or an ISO norm. So I think that helps to raise the quality and also give a stability in the price points, because if everybody needs to stick to the same rules, they can't be as cheap because safety also has a price point.
And I would add, standards become the norm. In the FAA, we see this waiver process as things start because the technology isn't known, hardware, software, operator, training, everything that Jan's touched on, that doesn't exist. So like industry has to write that. Someone has to step up first. Sometimes the first person doesn't survive, right? They don't even get to the standardization. And so I could even kind of dive into my presentation here if it helps.
Well, actually we can do that. There are some other topics that then we can touch upon finalizing your presentation, because that's why I like to use that standardization topic and eventually flexibility within the industry as it evolves. But yeah, Paul, again, we are thrilled to have you. So go ahead. Yeah.
All right. And I'll compare this to just night flying, right? In the US, you used to have to write for a waiver and explain what light you were going to put on your drone. And that was like, everyone was doing copy and pasting the same thing. That became a standard. And then it was written into the regulation that as long as you have this light, you can fly at night. So we're just going to discuss risk mitigation in FAA waiver submissions. I noticed there was a question directed to the to read with the drone specific, but it looked like those questions were pretty much coming from a waiver request submission. So I'm a FAA safety team representative in North Carolina Drone Pro. So helping not an FAA employee, but a representative helping them, get their mission out of safety. My background, I came up in the aviation industry as a private pilot and been involved in aviation for 17 plus years now, and on the Drone Advisory Council for a few commercial, the Department of Public Instruction here in North Carolina, and some construction entities. We're just going to talk about risk, the FAA's lens. What are they looking at when folks are trying to accomplish drone light shows here in the United States. Risk is severity and likelihood. What's the severity and what's the likelihood that that happens? We'll look at a quick risk matrix and then final thoughts. So the role of risk in the FAA waiver is, again, severity and likelihood. So the risk is a combination of the severity. What is the severity of something happens? If this goes wrong, if this fails, will it create catastrophic injury? Will it create, nominal injury? And then what's the likelihood? What's the chance that that could happen? Safe operations near people and structures. What do we have to demonstrate? That a coordinated command and control system. So that's that software aspect. And then redundant fail safes and containment plans. That's what, Reed will discuss in regards to how is that baked into the drone? Because as the operator, your burden is to convince the FAA that you've reduced risk to an acceptable level. And again, we're seeing a lot of that going on to the manufacturer when it comes to the airlines, aircraft. The operator has training in place. They validate that through the FAA, but they're operating aircraft that have been built to a standard. So severity, we want to reduce the consequences if failure occurs. If failure happens, how do you reduce the severity? And we can do that through using, lightweight drones. That's one aspect of that itself, is you don't need the largest, biggest sized vehicle like other operations. So a single, light show drone can be developed lightweight, use geofencing to ensure containment. Buffer zones. I've been to a few, the drone shows here in the US, and you always see, lots of like 30 minutes, right? A time building up to the show that they're going out and having to actually put up, if it's not in a pre-contained area, some sort of, tape or caution or people. And then redundant flight termination systems. So having not a single point of failure, and with drones, you can bake this in. So even if a drone loses its C2 communication, it still knows where it is. It still has that geofence that's built into it. So severity, how do we take it from being catastrophic, serious, down to an acceptable severity level? The second component is the likelihood. How can you lower the probability that the failure actually occurs? Pre-show software simulations and validations, right? Redundant subsystems, GNSS, IMUs. So if one fails, you still have a backup, not in order to continue the show, but in order for that one individual drone to come back or descend and execute an emergency command. Checks and crew training. So this was touched on already, right? Not just going there 2 weeks ahead of time, but going there and repeating these checks 2 hours ahead of time, because things change. Environmental conditions change. There isn't a big group of people gathered there 2 weeks before the event, but now there's thousands of people there. Firmware, pre-flight verification. Again, this is where hardware manufacturing, software manufacturing, and understanding the technology. Just because you can get it and just because it's doing things on its own, you need to know what these built-in self-tests are accomplishing. You need to be aware of having that latest geofence, that latest information synced to the aircraft right before you launch them. And then having redundant systems, computers, 2, 3, as many as you might need, depending on the number of actual drones that are going in the air. And so when you talk risk, severity, and likelihood, it all breaks down to numbers, right? Is one way of coming up with risk mitigation. So what could happen in the event of a drone light show? And this is where I think the question, one of the sections in the question was like, what if this happens? Does this drone have this technology? Or does the drone know how to not interact with a nearby aircraft? And so without any mitigations in place, you know, you could lose GPS. And so without any signal, it was mentioned about the incident in Florida. And so this is a terrible story where a boy in Florida is struck in the chest by a light show drone right at a time where it damages the heart valve, and the boy, 7 years old, has to be rushed into the hospital for emergency surgery. And my understanding is the boy is alive. Terrible incident. But looking back, I don't know the specifics. You kind of look at it like NTSB. Is there a way where the drone had a failure and then breached the geofence? Was there a geofence? How do you stop the motors? How do you lose GPS? How do you have a failure but not allow the other systems to continue? And so having multiple IMUs, multiple RTK, having these mitigations in place and understanding how that's baked into the hardware so that the pilots operating are trained to make sure that that mitigation is in place on site, that's going to help you take your severity and likelihood from 4s, 5s, 3s, and drop those down to 2s, 1s, and into a much more acceptable level. So the FAA is risk averse. Don't just say it's safe. You have to prove it's safe. I know in some of these waivers, it's not standardized technology. It's not standardized training. It's not standardized software. And so you're writing this on paper, but then you have to somewhat demonstrate it. And so there have been validations where during some initial shows or some offsite, you know, in order to get that waiver, in order to get that approval, you have to physically demonstrate it to the FAA. Because again, your burden is to convince the FAA that you've reduced risk to an acceptable level. And software and hardware manufacturers are doing a great job, right? Like drone show software, in order to provide that information, and whether it's documentation, right? A pilot's operating handbook for flight, you know, you have to have that support. You have to have that, not just I have this product, but I have the manual that goes with it. I have the training and the knowledge to be able to then communicate to the FAA why this software is capable, why this hardware is capable, and what it will do in the event that a failure happens. Because as a pilot, every time you launch drones, you have to have that mindset that something will go wrong. And thanks, Ruben.
Thanks, Paul. I think with all the experience that you bring to the table and the topics that you raise, it was a very good link from that European perspective that James brought on the table. Well, I do believe that there are differences in terms of the region itself, the level of the market, and each specific country. But again, I think, yeah, in terms of what we see is that standardization of certain elements across the board. And then also one of the topics that came to my mind is that flexibility from a not only from a regulation point of view as the industry evolves, but also from all the players, I believe, because it's a very fast and rapid evolving industry as we see in the last few years.
And I would add, just to hit that standards point, is the same thing's happening with drone delivery, where every operator right now is helping determine, develop, and demonstrate to the FAA what the standards need to look like. And that development costs something. And so to the operators that are out there doing it, they're literally help lead the way. And there's going to be, you know, we've seen a significant number of aviation incidents, and this is not political. It's not, but it's like we've seen upticks in just general aviation, flight aviation of aircraft. And so every day we get in cars, we get in airplanes, we understand the risk, and we have standards from a maintenance and operations. And drone shows will get there. You're seeing it in public safety for DFR in the United States, drones as first responders. And I'm excited to see it happen.
That's great. Thank you very much, Paul. One of the topics that Paul mentioned in the last part of his presentation was software, and which is one of the elements of the integrated solution of a drone show, and that's why I would like to introduce again Artur as an engineer with hands-on experience developing the safety features of drone show software, training a lot of people. We talk about those standards from a training and process perspective, as well as a technological. So we are looking forward to learning how technology and drone show software are helping to minimize risks in real time. Artur, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ruben. I've been here with SPH Engineering at the Drone Show Technologies Department for more than 10 years already. I just checked my resume. Yeah, it's been a long time, and time has gone by and things have been changing all the time. I remember my first day when I had to assemble a drone from components sent from the US. That was a time when drones came from the US, right? So some drones still do, and that's a great sign that still quality exists. Anyways, I've trained a lot of our certified teams. I've been in the development, and I would like you to learn more what we do as a company who produce software, but also we provide the whole solution for teams to get started. So from a training and a technical perspective, I will bring you the tools that are available for our users. So a little bit about our company, SPH Engineering. We have currently 4 main branches. We have a general branch, which deals with general flight planning and mission control. And then we have also custom development for any custom projects related to drones, as well as integrated systems that deals with industries like mining, construction, hydrography, and for those we have different sensors and things that we can put on drones to accomplish specific goals. And of course, the Drone Show Technologies department, which I'm at right now. And the company's been around since 2013, based in Riga, Latvia. Let's look into the Drone Show Technologies a bit more. So we're proud that our customers have more than 10 Guinness World Records accomplished thanks to our software, to our solution. Right now, we have 4 authorized drone manufacturers. And one of those is currently here with us in the webinar and will tell you more about their process when they build their drones and how they ensure their quality. Right now, we have about 450 trained pilots. Most of them were trained by me. And also about 25,000 drones that are constantly being used by our customers all around the world. And we have about 15 partner companies that are working with us in different aspects of the solution. Let's look a little bit at our solution. So from a technical and a software perspective, our solution mainly consists of drones, laptops, communications equipment, and positioning equipment. From a software perspective, we have the following tools that help us and our pilots to execute successful shows. So first of all, that's the DSS Dance Controller, or Drone Show Software Dance Controller. That is the main go-to tool for pilots right now. Allows to fly drone shows, see any telemetry that you would be interested in, set up everything, and that has been the norm since the first version of our software. Where a completely new approach to launching shows has been released by our company late last year, which is called Drone Show Software Quick Start. this tool is not only quick, but also safe and user-friendly, that allows our operators to get safe and easy shows. So the mindset is that drone shows do not have to be always very complicated, but at the same time, we want to keep a very high standard of safety by automating things as much as possible, but not just automating, but also checking every aspect of the process. And sometimes having automation in place can be safer than relying on a pilot to complete all the steps safely. So that's also one of the news that are on the horizon right now. We have a red button solution, which is basically an independent interface that allows our operators to return drones back, land them, or do any emergency commands that are necessary through an independent communications channel. So that can be a last resort in case of a failure. And of course, our special firmware that is on each of the drones that we support, which contains over 70 different checks all the time. So whenever something goes wrong or potentially could go wrong with the drone, we alert our operators immediately so that they can take the best decision possible. Now let's look into a bit deeper on our safety-related technical components. So right from the start of the show, we have a very comprehensive list of features that allow our operators to check every detail that's necessary for a safe show, and we do that by using pre-flight summary. So you see the window down in the middle of the screen where every aspect that is critical for a safe show is automatically checked, and the pilot can overview everything in one screen. For example, things like network connectivity, battery percentages, RTK state for the positioning, fences, trajectories, and even weather conditions. So this is a great way to give a green or a red light for the operator to have everything checked real quick in one window. Also, alert system, as mentioned, we have 70 conditions that are constantly being checked on the drones automatically. And if any of these technical checks are not passed, the operator is immediately alerted and can take immediate action if applicable. And also our one-click show launch solution, or quick start, which automates several of the key steps and thereby can not only ease the launch of the show, but also make it more safe to prevent potential human error. And built-in weather data allows operator to both see the current metadata and also to check a forecast. So that's also available. But not only the in-flight tools are useful for our operators, but also tools for creating the animations. And for that, we also have a completely new drone show creator tool that has a lot of the features that our customers requested. So it's a complete tool for building animations, but not only to build them, we're also able to check them in real time. So whenever you make an animation, you will immediately get notified about potential safety risks like speed and distance checks. So on the screen, you see the error list that's displayed to show designer in the real time. So whenever there are potential risks for distance or speed violations, that will be notified to the person who's designing the show. Also, we have ability to highlight those problems in a specific 3D view and reveal further data about each of those incidents. So that can be seen on this screenshot right here, where potentially speeding drones are immediately colored in red on our 3D window. And we can also see further details about each of those incidents. And of course, the technology itself will be nothing without humans using it. So that's why we do provide a comprehensive 3-day training for each of our pilots. So that means that not only the theoretical parts of the system will be taught, but also practical. So we always complete the training with a practical flight of the number of the drones that the customer has. So in the end, we want to make sure that our customers can start their show completely safe, and they are aware of every aspect that they are doing within this process. So therefore, after completing the training, also complete a knowledge test, after completing which only then we issue our certification for a successful completion of the training. So yeah, that's the process I'm involved with in our company. And yeah, just to summarize, we always try to improve our technology to allow for less error to be present in the process. And not only that, but we also try to improve our training with the latest knowledge, and also incorporate the latest requirements from the regulations to make our professionals as knowledgeable as possible. That's it from my side.
Thank you, Arturs. Yeah, I think there are a couple of the topics that we can return back when we have the Q&A and the roundup, because we are like a bit behind schedule, and I want to make sure that Ray, from a manufacturing perspective, covers the very important topics that he has on his agenda. Ray, again, thank you very much. It's great to have you here with us today. As a systems integration expert, you bring a crucial perspective on the safety mechanisms that eventually also Paul, during his presentation, touched upon. And I think we are all looking forward to hear from you.
So yeah, thank you for having me. I'm a representative from Luminaire, and I want to speak on our role as the manufacturer in ensuring light show safety. It does sound a little bit corny, but we really do believe that safety starts with us. So just a little bit about me. My background is in technical education, robotics, and drone systems integration. I started in and around 2018 with my professional career in the drone space as a technical advisor and educator with the Manatee County School Board here in Florida. So I was teaching middle school teachers how to teach middle school students how to fly drones. And then with that, I built a relationship with Luminaire, and I came on with Luminaire in 2020. So Luminaire, we are located in sunny Sarasota, Florida, here in the US. We are a global leader in the custom manufacturing and retail of high-performance drone systems and components. So in our 25,000 square foot facility, we have over 200,000 individual drone components, and we also house our assembly line here. This is where we build all manner of aircraft, but today we're going to be talking about our Aurora. So baked into the Aurora, going with a lot of what Paul had said from the FAA and the standards that are being developed kind of on their own within the industry, but also we're trying to lead this as much as we can with redundant systems on redundant systems. So we have redundant flight control systems, redundant sensor suites, ensuring that if there was a failure, that would still result in a safe operation. On top of that, we have triple redundant radio systems. So within our aircraft, we ensure that the pilot has secure connectivity from the ground station to the entire fleet from takeoff to landing, so that if there is an aircraft that sends back to the DSS screen, that pilot can gather all of that data. That there is no point during a show that a pilot is unsure of the current behavior, the current status of any of their aircraft. And like I said, with us being in Sarasota, Florida, if you've heard about Florida, you've heard about our weather. So we have a lot of rain. We're in the time of year now where 3 o'clock on the dot, it starts pouring rain. We know if we're going to have to deal with it, pilots are going to have to deal with it. So we designed our aircraft to be as weather resistant and resilient as possible. So we have water ingress prevention on our Aurora. We also have a wind resistant airframe. So we do have a slightly heavier drone than others on the market. That does come with its drawbacks, but we found that it provides significant wind and weather resistance. So if you're feeling wind on the ground, guarantee it's a lot stronger up in the air. So we wanted to make sure that these drones are safe and stable at all times of the performance. And with that, our flight times, we have worked to increase our flight times as much as possible within a safe margin, so that the pilot, operator, and crew will have situational awareness and safer decision making. That there's no split-second decision that's going to be safe. We want to make sure that there is enough time for the pilot to take control of the situation. And this is where we're really proud of what we've accomplished over the last few years with the light show industry, our manufacturing. So we have component level testing that's performed on every single component before we receive it. That's motors, ESCs, LEDs, flight controllers, everything from top to bottom is tested by the manufacturer before we receive it. Then on top of that, once we install these components into our subassemblies, they are all documented and tested, and then they are provided a unique traceable ID number. So we aggregate all of those ID numbers from start to finish, from component to pre-assembly to assembly to aircraft. That gives us an enormous amount of data that gives us traceability. So if we have a drone out in the field that has an issue, we can very quickly go back, see the entire life cycle of that drone from start to finish, part to aircraft, and we can figure out where that issue happened. It allows us to be proactive instead of reactive. Then once we have an aircraft fully assembled, we go out to the field and we fly every single aircraft multiple times before it gets into the hands of an operator. We have full system validation done on the ground without props, so that we can ensure that all of our flight controls, all of our telemetry, all of our radios are responding appropriately. And then we get them up in the air. We have a standardized limit testing flight. So we want to push these harder than the pilot should ever have to, find failure points on individual aircraft, address those if they need to be addressed in our assembly process, and then we certify that aircraft and we provide it to the pilots. And we also do, during our design phase, we have done weather stress testing. Like I said, we get a lot of rain here. We've also tested these in very hot and very cold conditions, ensuring that pilots can safely operate these shows all around the world.
Thank you very much, Ray. I think it's been great. Some great insights. It's just 1 hour since we got started. There are some questions asked in the Q&A, and then we'll touch upon those ones. But before just rounding up some of the topics, because we talk about those standards, that flexibility, that importance in terms of having direct contact from all the parties involved. Now also from an integrated system perspective between the hardware, software, etc. A couple of questions that I would like, or topics that I would like to put on the table for all of you guys. One of them, with all what we've talked and the evolution of the industry that we see, what do you think we are missing that would help the industry work more cohesively? It could be communication between manufacturers, software developers, regulators, etc., etc. In your opinion, what's missing today, guys?
And coming from a manufacturing side, the one thing that we see is the drone crashes, all of the problems. And hearing from Jens and Paul, standardization is very, very important. There need to be standard practices. There are companies that are doing their best, but they may not have the experience that they need to put on shows in the safest manner. So if there is a standard, if there is a certification process, and we can provide aircraft that meet those standards, and then we know that these showrunners are able to meet the standards for their shows, that would improve safety.
Thank you, Ray. Paul, also Jens, from your expertise and also all the work that you've been putting over the last years in terms of that link between operations, regulation, etc., etc. What's your take on that?
I mean, Reed basically said it all with the standardization and how important it is. But sitting at the standpoint at the moment, and I mean, we have to be clear that the first standards in our industry will come out like in a year's time. Standardization is a very, very long process. And I'm sure that's not only in Europe, that's all over the world. Taking into account that the first standardization is probably coming out in a year's time, we need to grant awareness that not every drone show provider or every drone show is the same. And I think, and this is one of our approaches with the Drone Show Alliance, where we actually getting in touch, educating agencies, because they working to their best knowledge. I mean, they get a request from a client and say, okay, hey, we want a drone show. The agency never did a drone show in their life before, so that means they're Googling it, finding one, asking for quotes, and let the customer decide what is the cheapest quote, because they can't even consult them in that matter, other than in other topics like catering and stages. They built hundreds of stages before and know how to consult a customer, but with drones they don't know. And what happens at the end is the client always or mostly decides on the cheapest price. And not to make any thoughts about, okay, why is one company so tremendously cheaper? I mean, we are not talking about like a 5 or 10% price difference where you say, okay, that just happens. Yeah, it doesn't matter what you do. There's always like 5 or 10. There are like 80% price differences. And I think the logical consequence of what they should do, like think about, okay, how can, like an example, a drone show company makes a drone show 5 days, every day 400 drones for 20,000 euros, where we say, if you just logically would calculate this backwards, you would see that can never be like a business. There needs to be something in place. And I think this awareness is another thing. And this is one thing to build up now, the awareness for the clients, for the agencies, and for all the stakeholders in the drone show involved.
Yeah, that's a very good topic, that awareness, which at the end of the day brings again that topic of cohesive cooperation between all parties involved eventually.
Yeah, I think drone shows providers, I mean, at the level we are talking about, we shouldn't see each other just as a competition, because if we look at, like, we have to basically give up on 80% of the requests we get, because there are far more requests, and I think that's all over the world. I mean, we're getting requests from other countries where we say we just can't do it, we don't have the resources. But if we work together, we can achieve so much more, and we actually, which is a good thing for everybody who actually owns a drone show business, can then put a decent price level up with the right quality, and we don't have to be really scared about competition anymore.
Yeah, that's it. Paul, I think you wanted to also to add your 5 cents on this.
Yeah, and then repetibility, because cheap drones might be able to do it one time, but when you're having to move these drones from one state to another, you know, from one area to another, the durability of the drones, the fact that they're going to do this over and over again. Jan's talked about 3,000 batteries for 1,000 drones, because if you're going to run some sort of, you know, pre-show tests where you haven't been before. Batteries somehow all of a sudden aren't actually charged, even though they were charged. And then you want it to be, you want it not expensive. You don't want it to be expensive. You want it to be reliable, but it can't be so expensive that you cannot, run a business. So it's baking in as much as is required for safety, but then understanding if you're putting up 500 drones, you have to have that mindset that you're going to have a battery deplete rapidly. You're going to have a drone have some sort of incident, and you're going to have these layers in place. And as an operator going into it, knowing that, how do you balance this? And it's not clear that if I buy this drone and I use this software, then I'm going to get this approval. And so we have seen in the US it go from being, you have to get approval per site, to, hey, you've done this long enough, you have enough experience, the technology you're using is proven enough to now you can get a blanket type of a waiver to operate in a more larger geographical region. And so I think that the commitment from the operator's standpoint, that's where this entails. And once you do that, people underestimate the the quality of the show. Because are you just going to run some like default snowman and characters that everyone else is running, or do you have someone on your team that is a blender, not a pilot? Do you have a visualist, someone who can God, someone knows the word I'm saying here, a
artist, animator.
Yes, someone who's who's going to help you create something, a show, and give that client exactly what they're trying to communicate. And are you going to splash music in? Because wow, now you're on a different level. And that's not necessarily safety. And so we have to get to the standard. And then once we have this standard, this thing that separates one from the other is that they can go off of that standard better. And the drone starts on time, right? Because when you're waiting for the lights to go down and it's dark, and are you scrambling? And so, it's.
I think, Paul, you guys brought some very good recommendations, and doing a quick round from your perspective, because we've received some questions in the chat about how to get started from different perspectives. I know that we could go on and depends on regions, etc. But there's been quite some questions on the Q&A, and also some questions that we received during the registration process to the roundtable. So what are some of the recommendations that go from certification of pilots, licenses, insurance? That's also another topic that's very important, and people or on-site recommendations. Maybe from each of your perspectives. Jens is also operating shows and so on. So you can give like some, like, let's say 3 main points, and then we can do a quick round between all of us. Because I have another question that I would like to put on the table before we finalize today's event. Jens,
okay. Yeah, I mean, about the certification, I think this is one of the key elements in having the right certifications and the right training program. So what we are looking into now on the standard side is to have, like, we have a pilot certification, which might be even an added on plus certification, because at the moment, like in Europe, you have a A2 pilot license, you have A1, A2, A3. For some reason, A2 is like the highest one, and nobody. I mean, this is the approach I like in the US. Like when we did shows in the US, you have like the FAA, and they're actually coming on site. They see you working and have a really good impression of, okay, this guy can handle the show or they can't. In Germany, that doesn't happen. So certification is a key place, and also like with certifications for like crew and personal. Batteries is I mean, we had this topic with batteries here a couple of times. I mean, we lost jobs because we took like 1 day more to prepare the site operation. And the comment was, oh yeah, the other company we just get the contract to, they are coming with the batteries, and they're going the same day. And I said, you have 3,000 batteries. Yeah, they coming as charged. And I said, okay, hold on. They have 3,000 batteries charged in their van. This is like a high risk, and this also leads to problems on the whole production. So I think, yeah, the certification thing is a good way. And as Arthur said earlier, like you're issuing a certificate to actually prove that people running into a certain process. With your certification, they get approved, and you say, okay, yeah, they are good to go. They probably need more training and more routine, but they are basically good to go from the basic point of knowledge. In Europe, you don't need to even add this certification that someone is approved on handling the software. And I think this is the process we need to start as quick as possible.
Great. Who wants to go next? I think that those have been great topics and towards where we are going, which is great in terms of standardization. Jens, thank you.
I would add to that, like, collaboration, and go to where the entertainment pieces already are, whether it's, fireworks, type vendors that are looking for ways to, they don't have the certification, they don't know the technology, but they can, bring that in without having to bring on the cost of the pilot and all the overhead in the US. It's great to contract, right? Working with other businesses for one-off, limited projects. So going there for collaboration, testing that market, small venue spaces that don't, they're the aggregator of the stuff. So people go there and say, I want to do something. Then they say, well, here's who you could contact. So, use that method of collaboration. Don't be afraid that these big companies like Disney and Universal, there's a question about lasers and pyrotechnics. It's already happening. And drones with pyrotechnics on them is already happening. And so look at that as a leveraging point, and don't be discouraged that there's already companies in your area that are doing 1,000 drone shows. Those cost a lot. So you're going to have your people up here doing the bigs, working with the large cities and organizations, but you're always going to have, a need for the 200, 300, maybe 100 drones. And if you can be creative, find, kind of find that niche area. And then from a training standpoint, businesses, because everyone on here isn't going to necessarily start their own drone company, but you could help meet, connect, network, meet like-minded, because you need logistics. You talk about the batteries, the drones, moving things, plane tickets. If you have to consider all those components. And so understanding this software could, and having training on it, could be what gets you the job with the next, big drone light show company in your area. So that's just some thoughts I wanted to end with.
Thank you, Paul. He mentioned training, maybe Arthur's also with your vast experience on training people, etc., etc. There are some other topics from your side, and also recommendations on site management, etc., etc.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, well, I always try to do my best during the training to bring all the knowledge, all the experience to the training attendees. But what still remains is the consistency. So when doing drone shows, you always want to try to be consistent as possible. Because if you're not consistent, if you're not doing your A to Z stuff, then things can go wrong. And it's the long run. It's a marathon. It's not doing a short sprint, getting one deal and having this one payment. It's the consistency that will keep us in the business. So let's do our work. Let's do it as best as possible, and keep all the drones in their places and land them all safely. That's my take of it.
And from a manufacturer perspective, Ray, in terms of technical elements, I think we mentioned also some topics of redundancy, GPS, etc., etc. What's your take on that?
Yeah, our biggest thing is once we hand it off, we're trusting that redundancy, the redundant IMUs, redundant sensors, but also touching on what Paul and Artur said, we're providing an aircraft that will not only just last through your training process, you'll be able to use it for years. It is a resilient aircraft. It'll take getting from your base to your show, from your show to your next show, it'll last years. We want to make sure that they're strong enough to do these shows, to handle being utilized like the tools they are, but also still safe enough.
Great, guys. I have some more questions just to wrap up on the Q&A that I would like to put on here for you guys, and with this we will close the event. Something related to the FAA, probably Paul in here. As a drone pilot, is any radio model where we can have to be in contact with FAA when waiver is approved here in the US for any emergency special when we are inside 3 miles in any airport? Maybe.
Yes. So having that waiver layered with an airspace authorization, traditionally, it's not necessarily the operational waiver that might require that communication, but actually the airspace authorization. Because if it's controlled airspace, you've got the 5 miles. If you're within 3 miles, that airspace authorization will usually state that there is a phone number that you're providing to air traffic control at that local. And so if they call that number while your hours are operational, there should be an answer. Having an aviation radio is great. Sometimes that is required to monitor certain frequencies. The challenge with that is most aviation, the handheld radios, you're not going to, this VHF works great in an airplane because you're up high in the air, you're above the obstacles. But when you get down on the ground and you're 3 miles from an airport, if you try to put in the tower frequency or something like that, your range in that radio is not going to have the same effectiveness that it would have. And so for these types of operations, traditionally you see, a phone number for direct communication being provided.
Great. Thank you, Paul. And let me see, because we've all been answering also some of them live while having the discussion.
There was another one about under current regulations, is the pilot certificate required? Yeah. And is the software certificate required? Because Artur's, I believe, mentioned the certification, and I think it's under FAA regulation, it wouldn't be required, but when you're submitting that waiver and you're saying we're using this software, submitting that in lieu with that, it is a clear way. It's a very clear way to communicate to the FAA that's assessing that request that your staff is trained on that software and its functionality.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. I came across that question just when you raised it up. And maybe one from a European perspective. Paul, you want to say something else?
Well, losing right under that, Patrice Guy said there seems to be a discussion regarding what worries me the most, or there doesn't seem to be a discussion about what worries me most, losing GPS in flight. It happens, I think, to all manufacturers. Will there be eventually a way to protect ourselves against this? And so I think, Reed, I'm sure you have a...
I'd actually be happy to speak on that. So now more and more with current world events, we're seeing GPS jammers becoming more accessible. It is a growing. We are actively looking into GPS jamming mitigation systems for our aircraft. But in the meantime, our aircraft have, like I've said, redundant sensors. So if we lose GPS, if we lose compass, the aircraft will still use accelerometers and IMUs to navigate itself safely back to its landing position. We also, with DSS, we have offsets. So there's offsets from where the show is performed to where any and all spectators are. So if these drones lose GPS, lose IMU, somehow we lose multiple redundant systems, they will immediately disarm. So it would go vertical, it would go down, it would land on its own. So that is a great question. It is a very big concern. I understand that. But we do have redundant systems that are tried, true, and tested.
Great. And I promise the last one. Well, I know that we have a lot of questions, but this one I think it's quite interesting because we've been focusing on Europe, the US, but there's one also which is about Africa. And what are you doing in helping other continents, especially Africa, to catch up with the new era of drone technology? Maybe not that specifically how we can. I would like to rephrase it basically. Not how are you helping other continents, but do you think there's room for further or tighter cooperation between regions to eventually support those countries or regions where maybe the industry is at another level of development, guys? And with this, we wrap up today's event.
So it's actually fairly pertinent to myself. We earlier this week we met with a gentleman from Niger's. Luminaire doesn't just make light show drones. We make drones for all industries. So we have a varied suite of public safety aircraft. So we met with this gentleman in order to facilitate his needs for public safety, find out what he needed, where he was, what his infrastructure was, and how we can provide a system to them that would work and keep their public safe.
Yeah, I mean, just coming from the standardization point of view, we next month there is like an international meeting on a ISO platform, and I'm a member of the German delegation. There are people coming from Africa, Japan, China, so they're all coming together and actually discussing now how we're going to proceed, because every country basically has the same problem. Just a different approach, like what we heard here about US and Europe have different approaches, and we try to standardize it all together, because I think the future outlook in this is, I mean, at the moment for us it's pretty easy to gain authorization in any EU country. Once we get over to the US, we have FAA certified pilots and a different process in place. And with other countries, it's even more difficult because sometimes they don't have any process really, and they don't understand what we are doing, and they don't understand what they approved. So it's a long way of actually being granted a permission. And what we are working on is like having a general worldwide frame of how drone operations and multi-drone operations are being approved all over the world.
Lovely, Jens. Okay, guys, almost 1.5 hours. I think it's been, we've tried to have a very choral conversation from different perspectives, from a European perspective with Jens, moving from a company owner, operator, and a regulation point of view. Yeah. Thank you, Jens, very much for your input today. We also heard from Paul on a more US and regulatory topic or perspective. Thank you, Paul, for your take today and your active participation as the rest of the guys. Ray, from a manufacturing perspective, with what's going on, what are potential new developments, because as Paul mentioned, drone shows evolve very quickly. What seems to be a new trend or pyro elements are already incorporated in some of the shows. We see more developments, and I think that will put safety topics and safety standardization on at the front line more and more as the industry continues to make some developments in that. And Arthurs, of course, thank you thank you for your input also from a software and technology point of view. Guys, thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining us and for all the questions. I know that there are some questions that we didn't manage to answer, but we'll make sure to answer them on written. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.